Alright guys, and welcome back to the Saints for the channel for something content for our match preview and predicted lineup video ahead of our trip to Leeds United tomorrow night. The first time we're playing Leeds this season, and it's almost March. That kind of emphasises how crazy this season's been. Obviously, it's a rearranged fixture. It's our game in hand. It's a massive game in my opinion. But before we get into it, do make sure you've hit that subscribe button with your notifications turned on if you haven't yet already. Follow us on all of our socials, and of course, this video is kindly sponsored by the guys over at Pitch Sport. If you haven't yet downloaded that app, the link is in the description. Right, let's get into it. So of course, Leeds to come, but before we talk about our opponent, let's talk about the last game for Saints as always. Chelsea in a 1-1 draw at home. Good performance, I think, is the best way to summarise it. Very simply put, it was a good performance. You know, we stopped the rot, and I think that was most important. Obviously, you can argue that maybe we would have come away with 3 points had we not given away that really silly penalty. You know, poor from Ings there. But at the same time, our goal was against the run of play. So I feel like it was a justified result. I don't think many Chelsea fans were complaining about it. I thought, from what I saw, they all thought that the draw was the fair result. I think a lot of Saints fans felt the draw was a fair result, and we move on. You know, like I said, we've stopped the rot. That was most important, putting an end to this run of 6 consecutive league defeats. But now, you know, we need to put that point to the side and try and get 3 from this one, because we've got to start looking at the table again. We want to get ourselves back in the top half. And, you know, this is a good opportunity to do that, given it being our game in hand. But it was a classy goal from Minamino. 2 goals in 3 games at Saints. Now he's proving me wrong. He's now scored the same amount of Redmond and Gineppo combined in 3 games. You know, that's just nuts. So he's a key player going into this one. You know, I've really enjoyed his performances in a Saints shirt so far. I thought Salcio had a great full Premier League debut. He's a contender in my opinion. And Moussa Gineppo, maybe his best game in a Saints shirt, you know, in that right wing back role. You know, it was more of a defensive performance from him, but he did very, very well. And it'll be interesting to see what Ralph goes for in terms of formation going into this one, because you have to say the back 5 kind of worked against Chelsea, albeit switching in between formations based on possession or defending without the ball. But it's definitely an option going into this one, I think, and fixtures to come for the rest of the season. But let's talk about Leeds, because we haven't had the opportunity to talk about them all season yet. Definitely a game that I was looking forward to when the fixture list came out, and obviously when Leeds were promoted back in July. Of course, would have been a great one for the fans, but again, we can't go. But just looking at the Premier League table now, we're very close to each other after our poor run. You know, Leeds had a few good results. Recently, they've been on a little bit of a dip, but I still see it as a very tricky game. They're 2 points ahead of us, got a better goal difference, and they're 1 place above us as well. So if we are to win the game, we go above them, and then of course that's our game in hand, and then we can start looking at the top 10 again. We'd go into 12th, but we'd only be 1 point off of Arsenal, who are 10th at the moment. And they've got a handful of great players. Obviously, they've got a great manager. Similar playing style, arguably, to Saints as well. There are players that we need to be looking out for. Obviously, a very attacking side. Sometimes it's a little bit kamikaze, as with Saints, you know, risky play. So I think there will be goals in this game. I don't think it'll be a dull affair at all. But they don't draw many. I think they've drawn 2 all season. So, you know, I think it's going to be a win for either side. Of course, I'm no expert on Leeds, so I sat down to have a chat with Oscar from All Leeds TV, who gave us some insight on everything that's been happening so far this season, how Leeds have settled into the Premier League and what his aspirations are for the rest of the season, and also what he thinks of Saints going into this game and how he's feeling. Right then, guys, on to the opposition preview part of the preview. I'm delighted to say I've got Oscar from All Leeds TV with me to discuss the game on Tuesday night. How are you doing, pal?
I'm not doing bad at all, mate. Not doing bad at all. Bit of a bad couple of games for us, but look, I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a really, really good game, to be honest.
Yeah, it's been a game that I've been looking forward to basically since July. And this is the first, you know, we're almost in March, and it's the first time we're playing each other because, you know, it's a season like no other. But obviously a season like no other, your first season back in the Premier League for a long time. What have you made of it so far?
To be honest, I often use the comparison between kind of Bielsa's first season so far to like Pochettino's time at Southampton. Kind of sometimes it's absolutely brilliant when the kind of the high press, high energy football works really well. We do tend to batter teams, to be fair. We battered Newcastle, Villa, a couple of other ones as well, West Brom. You know, a couple of games where you really have like just been completely dominant from minute 1 to 90. Then there's other games where the high risk is too high risk, and then the better teams who can keep the ball a bit better, expose the high line. You know, we've found a bit of trouble against them. So it will be an interesting one against Southampton. But in terms of our season so far, yeah, I think it's been very good, very positive start for us. I mean, there was a time, to be fair, a couple of weeks ago where we were kind of looking at it and thinking, wow, yeah, we're not that far off kind of like 6th or 7th. And yeah, obviously that normally means Europa League football, but obviously that's completely disappeared after the last couple of games. But it's been a really, really solid first season back for us.
Well, going into the game on Tuesday, you're 12th place, 24 games, same as us, 2 points ahead of us. So it's a big game. You know, it's both our game in hand. If Leeds were to finish 12th come the end of the season, would you take that, or do you feel like maybe top half finish is more the ambition this season?
Start of the season, I'd taken it. I'd have definitely taken it. Start of the season, and it's kind of where I thought we'd finish. I think I did say 12th at the start of the season. But in terms of how the season's gone, the fact we've got players to come back in, Robin Koch, Calvin Phillips, etc., etc. You know, we have got big players to come back in. Rodrigo Moreno as well. He's on his way back. So I look at that and think we've got to 12th with a lot of our best players not even in the team for most of the season, or large parts of the season they've been missing. So look at it from that point of view, and I don't think there's much between, say, the teams in 8th place and the teams in kind of 13th or 14th. I mean, we just played Wolves on Friday, and you know, there wasn't a big difference, you know, in terms of the quality, and there's not much difference in terms of points. So yeah, I definitely think in terms of if we do get it going again, you know, in terms of, you know, get those players back in, I think we could finish, you know, potentially top half. But to be honest, I'm still looking at it and thinking, as long as we finish above 18th, fantastic. But I just want us to keep playing the way we are doing. And that's the main thing this first season back. I wasn't really expecting anything in terms of league finish other than finishing above 18th, to be honest. I just thought the main thing was still having that same philosophy and sticking to our principles to an extent. And sometimes it gets criticised, but I think mostly it's worked well for us this season.
Yeah, I think it's worked really well. Like you say, definitely I remember when we got promoted like 8-9 years ago now, we all said just finish above that dotted line and then you can build, and that's kind of what we did. And I think Leeds could follow the exact same kind of model. You mentioned Pochettino earlier. I definitely think Leeds could definitely follow that model in the sense that stay up first season, build, and then knock on the door of a European spot in the seasons to come. But obviously, let's just keep it focused to this one game and not get too carried away. Who are the key players for Leeds then? Because you mentioned a couple who've been injured. You know, who's coming back from injury, who might be out, and who are the key players going into the game on Tuesday?
Looks like those three I've mentioned, Robin Koch, Calvin Phillips, Rodrigo Moreno, effectively our spine. You know, you're talking our centre-back, holding midfielder, and number 10 out of this game. So that's obviously a big boost for Southampton. In terms of players coming back, Diego Llorente, who we also signed in the summer from Real Sociedad, who's played, I think, 15 minutes for Leeds. I think it's something mad like that. And he's been injured twice in kind of that time. So it is pretty crazy. We've not had much value from him. So he is back now. He was on the bench against Wolves. Whether he comes back in, I'm not too sure, but I would expect it'll be pretty much the same team that played against Wolves, because we easily could have got someone in that Wolves game. We deserve something in that Wolves game. You know, in terms of it was quite a dominant second half from us. In all honesty, I think the goal we conceded was very unlucky. So I'm expecting the same team, to be honest. So you're probably looking at Illan Meslier in goal, and then it'll be. Let's try and think about this now. Luke Ayling right back, Pascal Struijk, Liam Cooper. And then we changed the team players' positions around that much the last couple of weeks. Anyway, Stuart Dow's left back. Holding midfielders will probably be Jamie Jefferson, Matthijs Klick. Right hand side, Rafinha. Through the middle, Tyler Roberts. On the left hand side, Jack Harrison. And up top on his own, Patrick Bamford. So I'm expecting that kind of team. In terms of danger men, Rafinha is definitely an obvious one. Left hand side as well. Probably Jack Harrison against Kyle Walker-Peters, will it be?
He's injured. So makeshift right back. We'll see. What are your thoughts on Southampton going into this one? Obviously, we've had a bad run. We put an end to it on Saturday with a point against Chelsea. But obviously at one point, and I'll say this every video, we were top of the league. What have you made of us as an outsider, and how are you feeling about this game? Do you think, you know, it might be two similar playing styles that could amount to a really entertaining game?
Yeah, I think first saw Southampton, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, the Man United game. I don't need to talk about the score, but I saw a lot of nonsense in terms of Hasenhüttl's got to change his whole style because they lost the game 9-0. No facts made about the fact they went down to 10 men, you know, very early doors, and it's always going to be an uphill battle from that point of view. And obviously, every single shot they took went into the back of the net, and it's just one of those things. So, you know, there's been the odd bad game. I think obviously played Tottenham early in the season as well. Remember Kane obviously supplying Son for 4 goals. And it's just the way it works. It's very similar to us. Probably when I look at it, probably in terms of the teams in the league, probably one of the most similar teams to us in the whole league, and certainly outside the top 6. So I do think it's going to be a really good game. I certainly don't expect a 0-0 in both teams in terms of the pressing. Both using pressing as kind of like a playmaker, trying to press high. I think both teams got mistakes in them in terms of playing out the back. So yeah, it will be an interesting game. I think we're a little bit more possession-based than Southampton. I think we're a little bit less. I think my perception of Southampton, whenever I see them, is very much go from front to back quite quickly. Not necessarily long ball, but it's very vertical kind of passing. Trying to get into the front two as quickly as possible. Not long ball by any stretch of the imagination. Kind of getting into the opposition's half as quickly as possible. So that'll be interesting. It's quite possible if you do go 2 up top, that we could go to a back 3. That is possible, to be fair. Depending on how Bielsa sees it, he does tend to like to have an extra centre back to what the opposition has centre forwards. And so that will be an interesting point of view. But yeah, Southampton, obviously Ings is one of the headlines. But for me, I really like people like Jay Adams and that lot. Romeo, they're the kind of people that kind of stand out to me. I just like the tenacity of the show in that kind of sense. They might not get the goals or the creativity or be the sexiest players in that kind of regard, but they do make them tick in terms of the press and that. They are normally the ones that lead the press. And obviously, Gineppo is another player who, start of last season when he first arrived at Southampton, I thought, wow, what a top signing this is. This is another fantastic bit of recruitment for Southampton. I know it's not worked out fantastically well for him so far. Well, certainly from what I've seen, I might be totally wrong on that, to be fair. But there's definitely danger men in that Southampton team. I think on set pieces as well. I'm looking at Vestergaard. Not looking forward to facing Vestergaard on a set piece because we've got a very big weakness on set pieces. We've improved it a bit last couple of weeks. But yeah, that's not one I'm looking forward to. I think Vestergaard's probably been for me, what I've seen, one of the best centre-backs outside the top 6 or 7 this season. Certainly starting the season, I thought he looked really good. I think Southampton, maybe early on in Hasenhüttl's reign, I thought had quite a soft underbelly to an extent, but I think they've improved on that this kind of season. Obviously there's been the odd game where you've lost heavily, but you have shown that a little bit more grit. You're getting the kind of wins that you didn't get last season too much. So I'm really wary of Southampton, really, really wary of what you can do. I know I watched you play Villa a couple of weeks back, and I don't know how you lost that game. How you lost that game, I do not know. It's one of the most craziest one-sided 1-0 defeats I've seen, to be fair, in this season. So, yeah, it's madness, really. I'm expecting a game where the XG will probably get to about 6 per team, to be fair, and then we'll probably miss a hatful of chances. We're both a bit notorious for doing that. So, yeah, very interesting one. Very, very interesting game. Obviously, Hasenhüttl got a lot of respect for what he's done at Southampton. In terms of, yes, you might say there's other managers out there who have got better results, but in terms of the way he's got Southampton playing, I think you kind of, when you watch it, despite being a team outside the top 6 or 7, I've got to say you're one of the most watchable teams outside the top 6 or 7, from my point of view, in terms of what I like to see from a team, in terms of the high press, high energy, trying to get the ball into the opposition half and keep it there, sustain attack. So I really like the way Southampton play, and it's not going to be a 0-0. I'm pretty sure of that. I don't think our team's built for 0-0s, and obviously, it will be interesting. A couple of players who we're knowing a lot about from the Championship. Alex McCarthy's one of them. He was on loan at us for quite a bit. Top keeper for us, and he looks like he's done pretty well this season. I'm not sure if is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I'd say it's fair. It depends who you ask. The last couple of games, he's been called to be dropped, but I still think he's our best goalkeeper by quite a far amount, so I'll always back McCarthy. I think he's a good keeper.
Melié's just come through the academy, so he's just come through for us, in the kind of the last year or so, and most of the talent in goal. And he's had a bit of criticism, to be fair, recently in terms of the last couple of games, but he really was superb against Wolves. So it's a good matchup. It's a good matchup all over the pitch. Ward-Prowse against Click will be an interesting one. In terms of Ward-Prowse on the one thing we can't do is give away set pieces. That much, because in terms of striking a dead ball, you can't really get much better than James Ward-Prowse in this league for me. I can't really think of many players who would rather stand over a free kick in the last minute of the game than James Ward-Prowse, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, you might be able to criticise him in open play. Maybe he can improve a little bit in open play from time to time. But my words, on a set piece, you don't want many more players in this league than James Ward-Prowse ever won. So really interesting matchups, high press versus a high press, all the makings of a top quality game. And I think the first goal could potentially be key in this one.
Yeah, I mean, you've exactly emphasised why this was one of the games at the start of the season, before it even started, actually, that I was looking forward to. I think we're pretty similar. You can definitely draw plenty of similarities between Saints and Leeds, particularly this season. But just to wrap up, pal, how are you feeling the game's going to go? And can I push you for a score prediction?
I can see an early goal. I think the one thing that's a little bit of a letdown is a massive letdown in any football game this season. It's the no fans. This is the game where I thought I really want the fans in the ground. So it's going to be an electric kind of game. You know, high energy versus high energy, pressing and all that lot. You really want the crowd in there, kind of thing. And that might have actually, to be fair, held both teams back a little bit at times this season. In terms of not having the crowd there to kind of roar on the press and that lot, and put a bit more pressure on teams trying to play out the back. So I can definitely see an early goal in that kind of respect. I think both teams are well matched up for that to happen. I'm going to back us in this one just about. And say, I'm going to say 2-1 Leeds. But it's not. It's going to be a really tough game for us. We've had games like this before in the Championship. Obviously, Southampton far higher quality than that. But in terms of when we play teams like Barnsley and that, these kind of new and up-and-coming teams who hire kind of like more forward-thinking coaches and getting to press high. And we faced that, against Barnsley towards the end of our season. And we struggled. We won the game, but we struggled. A bit more quality from them. And that's probably the most similar team I can think of in terms of specific style, in terms of pressing with a 4-4-2 or 5-3-2 with two strikers. That's probably the only team I can think of in terms of in the Championship we're faced doing this. And that's the thing with Southampton. You are very unique to me. You play with two up top most of the time, from what I can see. You press high and you refuse to kind of drop in against teams that better teams, if you like. You're not like a West Brom or a Burnley in terms of that completely sit back against the top teams. You say, come on, and I love that. I really do love that about Southampton. So yeah, I'm going to back us in this 2-1, but really wouldn't surprise me if it goes the other way. To be fair, really wouldn't surprise me if it goes the other way. In terms of Danny Ings against our high line, not something I'm looking forward to be fair. So it's going to be a real test for us on Tuesday night.
Right then, Oscar, mate, thank you very much for joining me finally. Where can everyone find you?
So you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all the socials. If you YouTube us on All Leeds TV, you'll find us there. Recently at 21k, so we're absolutely buzzing with that. And yeah, so if you want to subscribe to us, talking totally unbiased about Leeds United with unbiased match day commentaries on games, post-match chat, etc., pre-match chats, which we will be doing with Dan actually later on after this video. So make sure you check that out as well with Dan. And yeah, check us out. It's totally unbiased, and that's the way we try and be. Well, I suppose so. Maybe slightly biased, but you know what I mean. We're okay. We're not too bad.
Once again, I appreciate that, mate. Of course, All Leeds TV will be. Of course, the link for All Leeds TV will be in the description, but I also went on their channel, so you can check that one out. But going on to the predicted lineup, I think it's going to look pretty similar to the Chelsea game. Obviously, it's only a couple of days after that Chelsea game, and it all depends on formation. But for me, I reckon Ralph will stick with his back five, and that means that obviously it will be Alex McCarthy in goal, Bertrand as the left wing back, and then Salisu, Vestergaard, Bednarek as the centre backs, and Djenepo at right wing back. Then I think we're going to see Oriol Romeu and Ward-Prowse in the middle, of course. Firmino in there as well, and then Ings. But I think Adams will replace Redmond. I think there'll be the one change just in terms of keeping it fresh. Stuart Armstrong might slip into there, but Ralph said he's 50-50 going into this game, having missed the Chelsea game, which is a bit confusing because he said after Chelsea that he's an option. Don't really know what's going on with Stewie there, but hopefully he can play. But I'd personally keep him on the bench if he's 50-50, maybe bring him on because, of course, we don't want to risk injury. We've had too many players go out with injuries this season. He's a very key player for us. We can't risk him. But, yeah, I don't know what I think about this formation still. I'm a little bit hesitant. Only in the sense that it's just a bit defensive, but again, I guess when we haven't necessarily been scoring too many goals of late, so we'll have to see. And obviously, we're playing a very attacking side, and we will have to be on it, or the defence will definitely have to be on it if we have to come away with a result. So, in terms of a prediction to wrap everything up, I'm going to be confident. Maybe that's a bad idea because the first time in a while I went negative for my score prediction. We got a result against Chelsea. But I do think we can come away with 3 points in this one. I'm going to go 2-1 Saints. I think it'll be a game with goals. I think it'll be a very close game. Two decent sides playing similar football. And I'm really interested to see how we cope against Leeds because, again, like I said, this is the last team that we haven't yet played. So I want to see how we do against them. But thank you very much for watching the video, guys. If you have enjoyed it, leave it a like and subscribe if you haven't yet already. Follow us on our socials and we'll see you after the game for a match review, hopefully after a big 3 points for the Saints. Take it easy, guys.